people with different expertise to talk about different things that apply to the cleaning industry. So today I have on lawyer Shawuki G. Hilton, a good friend of mine.
It's good, bro.
We know each other. What's up? What's up? We know each other for a minute now. So today, Shaq will be talking about. We call him Shaq for short. No, he's not a physical specimen like Shaquille O'Neal, but he has the heart of a lion and of a champion. So I'm just gonna do a quick bio. His bio is too damn long, so I'm not gonna read everything to you. But we want to talk about some things as it relates to contracts, agreements. Talk about the new is it FCC?
FTC, Federal Trade Commission.
FTC, the new law regarding non-compete and what it really means. My name is Frank John, so let's get to it. All right. We have some questions. So today we have with us Shawuki G. Hilton. His middle name is Gadimir. True Haitian. Yeah, to my Haitian people, Sapase. I'm not Haitian, but I grew up around Haitians. So quickly, Shawuki attended SUNY Binghamton. That is where I went to school, where he graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Marketing and Leadership and Consulting. Shawuki then went to pursue his Juris Doctorate from the Western Michigan University Thomas M. Cooley Law School. During this time at WMU Cooley, Shawuki served as Justice of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International, Vice President of Entertainment and Sports and Entertainment Law Society, and an Associate Editor of the Western Michigan University Thomas M. Cooley Journal of Practical and Clinical Law. That is a lot to say. At the conclusion of law school, Shawuki graduated with cum laude honors, earning a spot on the honor roll and dean's list. Good for you. Professionally, Shawuki is an attorney, contract advisor, and serial entrepreneur. As the managing attorney of the Hilton law firm, PLLC, Shawuki has aided over a dozen startups and existing business with contractual, regulatory, administrative, and other legal matters. As a Canadian Football League, SFL, contract advisor, Shawuki has negotiated over $1.2 million in player contracts. Business-wise, Shawuki is the owner of multiple businesses and has a wealth of business experience and expertise. Shawuki is a member of Florida and District of Columbia Bar, Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International, Phi Delta Phi Legal Honor Society, and was recently named to the National Black Lawyers Top 40 Under 40 list in Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Shawuki Hilton.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it.
How you doing?
I'm good, bro. I'm good, man. Excited to be on here with you. Thank you for having me. Major props to you, by the way. I see the success you're having with the Janitorial Coaching Hub, Distinct Cleaning Services. Very proud of you, man. Love the entrepreneurial spirit and everything that you're doing, man. So major shout out and major blessings to you, bro.
Thank you. I know you're a very private man, but congratulations. You just got married. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ladies, he's off the list. What can you do? We try to keep him on, but somebody better came and snatched him. Kudos to you. I want us to talk about contract law, cleaning business. As you know, I'm in the cleaning space. You are a lawyer. You also have a law firm. You have some folks in the football, American football, or should I say Canadian football? Yeah, Canadian football industry that you represent, and you're doing very well in. But I'm gonna throw something out of the window. What the hell is a PLLC? I always see this with lawyers that I've been meaning to ask. So what is that?
Good question. So it is a limited liability company. Typically, like you see, like anyone may start up their own company and they form an LLC. Typically, PLLC is designated for professionals. So in this particular case, like I am an attorney. So PLLC signifying that as an attorney, me having that particular designation with the P in front of it means that I'm practicing in a specific profession. So you may see that tied to like dentistry. You may see it tied to like a CPA. It just designates that it's a limited liability company, but typically have designated professionals with licensures who are running it.
Oh, okay. I always see that. I'm like, PLLC. I know about LLCs, yep. But PLL. So it means the P actually stands for professional, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you learned something new, right? Janitorial Coaching Hub will do that for you. So, yeah, thank you for having you here. Today, I want us to really talk about contracts. As you know, as I mentioned before, I'm in the cleaning space, and part of what we do is to hold or to have binding contracts between you, the cleaning company, and the person that is contracting you. Then you can also have a contract between yourself, the parent or the primary cleaning company, and whoever you're bringing on as a subcontractor. And that gets really funny because one of the things that I notice in the industry is that sometimes we say people are subcontractors, and then they're really not. They're just hourly workers or wage workers that we are masking them as subcontractors, and sometimes that can really get you into some trouble. So I kind of wanted to just have a few questions. It's our first one, so we don't know how it's gonna go, but we let's try and make it conversational. As much as you can relate to the cleaning, it will be great. And let's go from there. So I have a first question for you. Just my first question to you is that what type of lawyer are you? When they say somebody's a contract lawyer, what does that really mean?
Excellent question. So it's just that a contract lawyer in the sense that focusing your expertise in your craft on dealing with contracts or agreements whereby someone may come to you and say, hey, I need you to draft a contract for me for this particular matter. I need you to review a contract for me regarding this particular matter. So in my line of work and just in my professional experience, I've dealt with a variety of contractual issues, whether it be someone wanting me to draft a contract for them. So I've had clients where they have a business that they just started, and so what they need is an operating agreement. I've drafted that for them. Or you have a situation where someone may say, hey, I'm in a business and I have a product that I sell. This is the terms on how I sell the product. I need you to review it. Or a service like cleaning. You offer these cleaning services. Could you draft a contract that says these are the services that my company offers, and we give it to a client? So as a contract attorney, typically you'll find that individuals in this space are versed with negotiating, reviewing, and also drafting a contract.
Okay. You had mentioned something. You said, is it not service agreement? You had mentioned something right now where you're talking about like when people are starting
operating agreement.
Operating agreement, yeah. What is that? What is an operating agreement? And follow up to that is that when you're starting a cleaning company, where does that fall within the formation of a company, especially for us in the cleaning company? What is an operating agreement?
Another good question. So typically an operating agreement comes into play when you first start your business. Your operating agreement, think of it like kind of laying the foundation before you build a home. You're pretty much laying the groundwork for how the business will operate. So I've seen examples where maybe a business wants to put in who will be responsible for what duties. You know, I've served in a business before where that was a discussion that we had, like, let's include this language in the operating agreement, or let's revise the current operating agreement to have an updated one where we include who's responsible for what happens if we decide to dissolve the business, what's the process behind that? If we want to vote in a new member, what are the terms behind that? What if one of us are deemed to be incapacitated and we can no longer operate within our normal faculties? Like maybe the court deems us to be incompetent. What comes into play with that? So the operating agreement typically will lay your foundation and how you want your business to run. And that way you have a greater sense of organization. So should a situation arise and you're like, you know what, this could have potential legal implications, let's go to the operating agreement to take a look and see what it is that we've decided on.
Okay, so I see that from what you're saying, the operating agreement is a protective factor though for your business, where
Right.
it's like, so for example, I see a lot of people come to me and say, well, Frank, I want to start a cleaning business. Like I have a student who has come to me more than once and saying, this person wants to partner with me in my cleaning business. And my advice to them, because of where their cleaning business is, I don't think you need a partner right now. You need to figure out how you're actually even going to operate your cleaning business, because you haven't gotten anywhere. So the question I ask you is that, let's say people want to partner up. Is that where an operating agreement becomes super, super useful? I know it's useful, but is that like one of the situations where an operating agreement will become super, super useful?
Absolutely. Because what you're doing now is you're putting your intent to work together into a documented agreement. Like in your example, let's say now in that instance, right, the person who starts the company, they decide they want to add a partner. They want to add somebody and they want to give them a percentage of the business. Yes, that's where you want to have an operating agreement, because the operating agreement, again, what ownership percentage are you going to give this person? Let's say one person starts it, they have 100% of the business. You bring somebody else in and you decide to give them 30% of the business. Okay, with that 30%, what does that entail? Does that 30% come with that person giving capital, the new partner or proposed new partner? Are they going to give capital? Let's say, I don't know, they're going to offer $10,000. Are they going to give that? Or is it a situation where it's a silent partner? Do they have a certain arrangement like that? So to your question, yes, having something documented will save headaches down the line. And trust me, I'm speaking from experience, speaking from things I've seen and heard of in scenarios where, because you didn't have certain things laid out, now there's ambiguity. And then now you have to kind of figure it out as you go, versus having everything set up in the beginning. And when you get to a point where you may need to look at an operating agreement, you already have one to guide you.
Okay, so for those who are listening and those who are, and I believe in partnership, right? Because one can move 1,000, two can move 10,000.
Correct.
But what you're essentially saying is that don't get into a partnership without an operating agreement or something like that in place, and make sure it is clearly defined.
Correct. Because you want to, the way I often look at situations like that is, you want to put yourself in a position where the future you will look back and thank the past you, like, man, thank you for doing that. Because you don't want to be in a spot where you're like, man, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have put certain things in writing. And you then find yourself in a position where, had you had it in writing, you may not have ended up with such a difficult situation. But because you didn't, now you find yourself having to deal with things that could have been outlined in a signed agreement. So if that person is coming to the table and they're bringing something and you want to add them to the business, be clear in what the terms are, make sure everyone's on the same page, and have something in writing that the two of you can be bound by. So in the event of any conflict or issues, you can always refer back to that agreement.
Wow. Okay. That's super important. And one of the reasons why I asked that, you feel free to comment, is when you're starting a business, they ask you about operating agreement and all that. In my head, I remember when I was starting Distinct, and they were like, "Oh, you got to do an operating." I was like, "Man, I ain't even get started. I don't even have a client. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's just me and my wife too. When she decides to show up,
right?
But it's just really me. But what you're really saying is that the document is really, right now, it may not seem as useful, but
Correct.
down the line, when the business is growing, it becomes super, super useful, because
Correct.
It's like a business plan. It serves as a blueprint, right? So
correct.
I think that's very good information to give folks, because a lot of people want to get into business together, but they don't have anything like that. And then that is a sure way of destroying friendships, because money is one of the best ways you can make or break a friendship. People like you until they get involved with your money, right?
Man, you preaching right now, bro. You preach. And one other thing too, You brought up actually a very valuable point. You said, I just started the business. Sometimes people don't even get those things. Like entrepreneurs may not even get an operating agreement because they don't even realize the importance of it. Some people just may be like, look, man, I know a little bit about this industry. I want to start a business, but they may not know all the nuances and intricacies that are involved. So like you said, they may be like, yo, it's just me. I don't need it. But let me ask you though, God forbid something happens to you, right? What happens to the business? Is there somebody that's designated to wrap up your affairs in the event something goes wrong? Who's going to file the tax return for the business? Who's going to make sure that the business gets wound up appropriately? See, people don't think like that. And what ends up happening is you find yourself in a position now where if it's just you, let's just say you're starting out, you don't have that affair taken care of. Now you're wondering, okay, what's going to end up happening to my business? And again, it's not the person's fault because sometimes some people just don't know what they don't know. And so they just go into it like, hey, I'll figure it out as I go. But these are the type of things like even if you do a little bit of research to go down that path and figure out, okay, if I didn't need one right now, if it's just me, when could I potentially need one? And do I want to get an attorney to help me with it?
That's good. That's good. And I guess this is a good way to put in that if you're looking for an attorney to do that kind of stuff for you, Hilton Law Firm is a place to be. And we'll talk about that towards the end. I want to ask a question.
Yep.
So in talking in talking about contract and all of that, and this is, I don't know, it's a question I feel like it's good to ask because I believe in fundamentals. What is the difference between a subcontractor and somebody that is like a W-2? Is that something? I know some of it is tax related and you're not a tax lawyer, but
correct.
What is the difference between a subcontractor and a W-2 as defined by the law?
So, because I know there are going to be obviously some people who may not be like legally versed or may not know all the intricacies of like legal vocabulary. So I'm going to keep a lot of what I say. I'm trying to keep it like as lay as possible.
Please.
So typically with subcontractors, I got you, bro. Typically with subcontractors, these are individuals that you find who have the expertise and knowledge already in the business. And you can contract with them typically like an independent contractor. You can contract with them for a certain period of time to offer services for your business. Typically, you see it like a good example would be in the construction space, right? Where you'll be that there's a general contractor and subcontractors where you go find the expertise for plumbing. You go find the expertise for electrical. So that way you subcontract their expertise. They may not necessarily be a part of the overall business that's managing the project, but their services are needed for a certain period of time. When you look at a W-2, on the other hand, those are individuals that are obligated to that business. Typically, they've signed employment documentations, sometimes an employment agreement. They receive the W-2 from the organization versus maybe, like I say, a 1099. And those are individuals who, in some instances, may not have as much experience as a subcontractor in a particular regard. They may know a little bit about the industry. They may have worked in it for a certain period of time, but maybe in a particular regard, it's a situation where they don't have as much knowledge as the subcontractor does, or maybe they work in a completely different department than that of a subcontractor. They just happen to work on behalf of the company.
So it seems to me you're telling me that when you can't say somebody's a subcontractor, you're telling them how to do their job. Because, I mean, think about it, right? If they have the expertise, I'm looking for a plumber.
Right.
I can show you where the problem is, but it's like, I can't tell you do it this way, that way, that way. Whereas when somebody is a W-2 for me, because they may come in, I think you said the keyword, they may not have the expertise or the knowledge, the pre-knowledge, the foreknowledge. I'm required to kind of help them navigate, aka train them, right? Because the reason I say that is because, and some of us have done this in the past, I don't do it anymore, is, oh, you're a subcontractor, but you got to wear my uniform. I'm training you. That makes them a W-2. You know what I mean? Like, you got to show up at this time. You got to not show up at this time. And I think I see that a lot in the cleaning industry where I think, and we do that to kind of, I don't I don't know, but I sense part of why we do that is one, that the lack of a business acumen.
Okay.
We don't understand business, and that's something I always say, that you're a cleaning business, right? So we find the easy way out, the evade tax. I mean, some people would do that to evade certain tax issues. I'm not gonna talk it. This is not the platform for it, and it says sometimes easier, right? Because in the cleaning industry, we know that a lot of times we get paid at the end of the month for most people. So it's like, where am I getting that money to pay you every two weeks? And so sometimes it's easier to have a subcontractor where you pay them at the end of the month due to the lack of cash flow or whatever it is, right? To make things easier for you. So, I mean, if you don't have anything to say, we're just talking. So,
Actually, I had a quick question for you. So, like in your space, so let's say you have a subcontractor and they're working on a project for you, they're working with a client that you've contracted with. Do they wear their own uniform? Do they wear your company's uniform? How do you have that work?
I know one thing: they cannot wear your uniform if they're a subcontractor. Now, it would depend on relationship with the with the person that hired you. So let's say Frank's Cleaning, let's not use that. Distinct Cleaning, which I own, got a contract from the Hilton law firm, right, to clean your space, and I brought in, you know, whatever, ABC cleaning services. Okay. Depending on the nature of my relationship with you, and depending on how transparent I am, and I always advocate for transparency, ABC might wear a uniform. This is what I mean. You may not like that. You may have had past experiences where cleaning companies subcontract their work where the work was trash, right? They didn't do a good job. So you may not want another situation like that. No, you don't know how I manage my subcontractors. So I know that if I tell you that, oh yeah, I got the contract, but I'll be giving a portion of it to ABC Clean to do the work. You may not be able to say, like, Frank, I hired your company.
Okay.
Cleaning, right? So what some people may do is that they will bring in a subcontractor, but then the right thing to do is to have a manager within Distinct Cleaning that manages the subcontractor. And then it could be part of your rule is that you will prefer that the subcontract doesn't wear you would prefer that the subcontractor doesn't wear their uniform when they go on the job. I'm not sure the legal ramifications, and we could check on that, the legal ramifications with that, but it is common practice within the cleaning industry that, because especially people that do night cleaning, like nobody's there anyway, so it's like it is common practice that they go and do their job, but you manage, and they also don't interact. So ABC Cleaning does not interact with Hilton Law. Rather, Distinct Cleaning interacts with Hilton Law.
Okay, I got
then
you.
Whatever the issue is, we communicate it to ABC Cleaning, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
For all you know, as long as you come in the morning and your offices are clean, that is Distinct Cleaning. But sometimes you may know that we subcontract the workout, sometimes that you may not know. I think it depends, and that's how you have to use your experience, your expertise, and a lot of wisdom to navigate the situation. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I prefer though that sometimes I just tell the client, hey, I am going to bring in a subcontractor, but rest assured he is managed. I have a manager, or myself will be managing them. You'll be talking to me, and the work will be done. Yeah,
makes sense. Okay, no, I was just curious how it will work, but that makes a lot of sense though.
I want to ask you a question. So as we, in the spirit of talking about contract, what is considered a legal contract, and what are some of the aspects of a legal contract? What is a legal contract?
So legal contract, there's elements that you want to look for when you're talking about a legal contract: offer, acceptance, consideration, capacity, legality, mutual assent. All right. So obviously you have two parties that are coming together. There's an offer made by one party for something. Okay. And then there's an acceptance by it. Maybe you're offering to provide services to a client to clean their office space. So you offer, they accept. The two of you mutually understand what's going on. The fact that you've made the offer, that the client has accepted it. So there's the mutual accept. Is it legal? Is it within the state and federal guidelines to basically form a legally binding contract? Also, capacity. Are the two of you, whether it be, let's say, for example, it's you, part of distinct cleaning services, and then you have a client who's a part of, let's just say they own the building, for this example, that the two of you have the capacity, or you have the legal, of the correct mind frame to be able to come together and say, yes, I can act on behalf of the business that I'm speaking on behalf of as an authorized party, and I have the sound mind, the legal wherewithal, the capacity in order to be able to engage in a contract. So those are the typical elements that you want to look for in a situation when you start talking about, does a contract exist? Now, in a space like this, we also know that typically these things are in writing, right? These things are documented, they're written down, because again, too, it's good practice to have it, because again, like we were talking about before with operating agreements, we have something we can always refer back to, that should there be some type of like disagreement or dispute, we have the agreement that we signed earlier on that can speak to it.
And so that question is super important, because you're talking about having it in writing. But there are these traditional beliefs, especially in the business space across the world, and certainly in the United States, right? That a handshake is binding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that translate in the legal system? Assuming so, a while ago, I went to bid on a job, and the lady was like, "Yeah, you got it." I gave her the price right there. I'm an expert. When I go to a job, most of the time I could tell you how much I'm going to charge. So I saw the job. I knew we could do it. It was within our capacity. I told her how much I'm going to charge. And then she was like, "It's yours. Tomorrow, come and do the job." No, we went on a Thursday. So we're supposed to do the job on a Monday. The next day, when I called her to start the paperwork, etc., she was like, "I think I'm going to go a different route."
Mm-hmm.
We shook hands on it, but she changed her mind.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, in that situation, did she break a contract? Is that legally accepted?
So good question. It depends on the circumstances, right? So could you say that a handshake contract is effective? Yes. But then let's go back to what we just spoke about. Are all of the elements present that form a contract? So let's say, for example, you wanted to take her to court. Hey, I gave you the price, you accepted it. You know, you and I were of sound mind. The terms we had were legal, so they meet legality. We basically understood that there was a contract that was present. So now you would have to be able to go to a court and articulate that these elements existed, and for that reason, she breached the contract. So it all comes down to the facts, the scenario, whether or not you can prove that those elements that form a contract existed. Hence why we talk about having them in writing, because that at least makes your case a lot stronger versus now you having to come to a court to say, "Your Honor, let's look at the situation at hand, and these elements existed," having to prove each one, and then ultimately referring to, she breached it because she didn't abide by a contract she ultimately agreed to.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Essentially, I like to reiterate and rephrase or just repose the question, what you're saying, so my listeners have a better understanding. What you're saying is that even if there is a verbal agreement or a handshake, don't take it as a final thing until you try to put something in writing.
One thing, and this is just, I guess, more so a personal point for me, I would feel more comfortable having something documented. Not to say that the handshake agreement, again, given the scenario, given the facts, couldn't be proven to actually have a valid contract that exists. I think especially when you start talking about business, it's a wise business practice to document, because now you have something you can always refer to that speaks to the terms that the two of you were on the same page about. Because now who's to say now, right, that the two of you speak, You agree to terms, you come back, and then now they change the terms up to say, hey, I'm still on board, but here's some different things. Like, no, that's not what we agreed to. And they're like, well, it's either take it or leave it. And you were firm on the original terms. Now, it would have benefited you to have that documented to say, no, I'm not willing to do that. Here's what we agreed to. We got to stand firm on that. So I just say, I guess for me, just kind of knowing how I am, and I guess a little bit of the OCD, man, you know me from college. I'd feel more comfortable having something documented and writing.
Yes. OCD.
Yes.
Why the hell did you have a white carpet in college?
Look, man, look, we're going to go through that. Listen, I had no control of what they had in the house. I had no control over it.
This brother had a cream. It wasn't white or cream. Somebody
it was like a creamish. It was like creamish, yeah.
You had no business having a cream looking carpet in college. Yeah, you were different. Yeah, you're different, but let's not get off track because we could talk about college stories for days. Remember that promo video we did with the working out?
Yes.
The stroke show?
How could I forget? You were directing it. How could I forget?
I think it's still on my Facebook somewhere.
Yeah, how could I forget?
I look at them like, what are we doing? But that's college days. It's fun. It's fun. 1 second. So we talked about contracts, the wisdom of contracts being signed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if you could speak on this, but if you do, I just want you to talk about it from the legal framework. So there's something we call a net payment. So like a lot of people do net 30s and stuff like that. How does a person deal with a client's net payment if the cleaning company is the one offering the client? So basically what I'm saying is that if the cleaning company is the one offering the contract, the document to be signed, shouldn't the cleaning company dictate when they need payment, or the client can dictate when they need payment?
Good question. So I think as a practical business approach, if you're offering a service, it would be wise to offer your services documented to say, okay, here are the services that are being offered. Here is the method and payment in which I seek to be paid in, and this is how payment should go. Because I'm not overly versed when you talk about different net payments, but from the research that I've done, the one thing that comes to mind from a legal perspective is non-payment. So non-payment is probably one of the biggest breaches of contract, aside from somebody maybe not even doing what they said they were going to contract to do, the job. Non-payment, I'd imagine, be a big one as well. So in that particular instance, the cleaning company in this example, and you see this with service providers tend to give a contract about the services. Here's what the services will be. Here's how long they will be performed for. Here's how much we will get paid. Here are other specific terms that may outline other responsibilities, etc. So if in fact a cleaning company is dealing with a client who ultimately maybe breaches the contract, that doesn't make the payment at this specific net time frame, then you have grounds to talk about breach of contract. Then you have grounds to potentially bring suit if they refuse to be able to honor that.
Okay, I think that makes sense, because my experience has been that, and it depends. I think sometimes depend where you are in business. If you're a smaller company, and I've experienced as I've gotten, by the grace of God, as we grow, what I've realized is that I started to have more room in terms of dictating the cadence at which I'll be paid, right? But when you are smaller, it seems that the company that you contract with, I don't know if they see that you're smaller, so you kind of need the client, you kind of need to build your resume, or your client base. So sometimes they say, well, we do the payment, we do a net whatever, and then because you need a client, you're forced to go with it. So, but what you're saying is that as a service provider, we should make it a practice, though it wouldn't always work. We should make it a practice to kind of, or attempt with great effort to dictate our payment policy towards the client. I think, is that what you're I'm not
Correct.
saying it's law, but is that what you're encouraging?
Correct. And this is, and remove even the legal component of it, just a sound business practice. If I'm offering you a service, I want to show that I'm prepared to offer you this service and also be firm in the terms of said service. If I'm a cleaning company, if I'm, offering any other thing that involves me exchanging a service, me giving it to you, I want to make sure I have it documented to say, hey, here are my terms. This is what we agreed to. Excellent. All right, cool. Here's how I accept payment. This way, it at least alleviates the situation where down the line, now all of a sudden the client is like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. And it's like, well, we signed on a contract, so you not doing it, it ultimately amounts to breach. So yeah, it would be, as a service provider, just even as a good business practice, having a service contract prepared so that way you can give it to the client, because at least then, if they have their reservations or there's certain things they want to push back on, then you can get into a negotiating. Okay, well, I'll give you, I can't maybe do a net 15. How about a net 30? Okay, and there's at least an opportunity for the two of you to talk about it versus it being a situation where they're dictating all the terms, but you're the service provider and you can't even work in the situation the way you're accustomed to working within it.
Basically, yeah, and they basically, you're doing the service, but you're getting paid 15 years from today. Yeah, you don't want, yeah. You won't have any subcontractors to work for you, or you won't have any staff that will work for you. Your kids won't even work for you. Your daddy and your mommy will not work for you. So yeah, that's it's a wrap on that. But yeah, I think that is very, very important. I've also had a situation where I remember I once had a very important client. I missed them. They decided to discontinue working with us, and it happens.
Yep.
Yeah, we issued invoice on the first of the Monday, and we had their card on file, right? And we took the payment. In the middle of the month, they decided to discontinue working with us. We kind of saw it coming, but what they did was, it was like, because they are breaching because when they decided to discontinue, they said it the same day, and they were supposed to give us 2 weeks in advance to stop the service. But because they technically breached the contract, the way they went about it was, we have made the payment. We are not asking for any we're not asking for any amount of money back for the services that you won't render, because we do realize we are breaching the contract. So just keep the money. Let's all go our separate ways. It was nice knowing you. And I was like, yeah, I'll take your money any day. I mean, it's fine. I ain't mad at it.
I'm a businessman at the end of the day.
Yeah. I was like, I mean, no love lost. I mean, I'll take your money any day. If you call me back, I'll jack up the price, because
yesterday's price ain't today's price.
You already know. I was just about to say that. So, but what I'm saying is that there are those kind of situations, and I think that is why having business wisdom is also very important, because yes, they breached the contract, but they made certain things favorable for you, right? Because they could have said, well, pay us the remainder of the services you didn't render, and then blah blah blah, and then it's a headache trying to sometimes go through these legal systems. All right, let's get on. So recently, is it the FTC, Federal Trade, came up with this whole thing of the non-compete law? Like I guess they outlawed it. Tell me a little bit about it, and then let's talk about how it. So now we are talking about subcontracting, how it plays out as a subcontractor.
Okay, so let's go to the first part of your question. So yes, the FTC recently published a rule. So the publication date, let me have it. The publication date was the 7th of May, but it goes into effect. The effective date is in September 4th of this year. Okay, so after September 4th, any non-competes that have been in existence, with the exception of a select few, and we'll talk about that in a moment, with the exception of a select few, will now be null and void. So any non-competes in an agreement will be null and void. Now, when you talk about it from the standpoint of a subcontractor, it depends. First and foremost, did you have them execute a subcontracting agreement? Okay, if they did, cool. Secondly, in said subcontracting agreement, did you have it state that there's a non-compete, basically where they can't, maybe they want to open a business and they want to seek to solicit a client of yours or the client that they work on with you for their business, or however other restrictions you want to put into that non-compete clause. That clause becomes null and void on the 4th of September of this year. So now you'll be in a position where they will be able to freely go about, start the business, and be able to compete freely without there being any restrictions. And that was ultimately what the FTC concluded in their rule, is that FTC non-competes are deemed to be basically they're restrictive. They don't allow for competition. Individuals may seek to go off and start a business, and they want the opportunity to compete fairly in an open market. That's pretty much the basis of the rule.
Okay, so essentially, non-compete is saying that you can't start a cleaning business if you work for me, but like you can't start it within a certain period of time. Is that what a non-compete really says?
Correct. So non-competes can put restrictions on the time frame in which an individual can be able to compete in the industry, or even I've seen non-competes having like a certain geographical radius. So if you open a business, it can't be within 30 miles of the city of Boston, Massachusetts, because that's where we generally operate out of. But now with the FTC's non-compete, it wipes all of that off the table. So that person can go ahead, leave your company, and be freely able to go start their own company and compete. And it's a practice that sucks, but people do it. Try to poach a client. It happens in business. I've seen it many a times where people will try to poach business from you. It will happen. So you look at it from that perspective. It basically now, I guess you could say, it kind of levels the playing field, where that subcontractor, they can come in, exercise their expertise, maybe learn some additional things through working with you, and then now they have the free reign to go and be able to compete against your business.
So with that, so now that will be outlawed completely September 4th, 2024, what clause? Because one must think about the aspect of poaching. People are just crazy. People are just,
no, you're right.
People are funny, right? And one must think about, well, this subcontract I'm bringing on, how do I protect my company from this subcontractor going to get my client? What would you say that they should put in their subcontracting agreement?
Well, I would look at, and even putting aside the agreement first, I would look at the kind of relationship you're building with the client, right? I think people would be surprised to know that there's a lot of people out there, specifically in the business space, that they respect loyalty. If I have a service provider that's taking good care of me, that's timely with how they do their work, they're very professional, they're always on top of whatever they need to be on top of, I'm probably less inclined to want to go sign up with somebody else, because I know I have it good over here. As the saying goes, the grass isn't always greener. So I think that's more so from a business perspective. So there's that. That's the first thing. Secondly, I've seen non-solicitation provisions where essentially you're kind of putting restrictions around soliciting clients that you've worked with for an employer, not reaching out, not engaging them, non-solicitation. So that could be something that you can craft to be able to put into an agreement. But again, depends on, the verbiage, how it's worded. Could somebody make an argument that, hey, this is essentially a non-compete? Again, it depends on the facts. It depends on the circumstances. But typically, though, a non-solicitation at this moment, at this point in time, is one thing. You also, too, if there's certain, I guess you could say, certain business practices that you do that are, kind of deemed confidential or essential for the business, that may not be widespread or known throughout the industry, and that's what gives you a competitive advantage. And by the way, it's completely legal, whatever action you're doing. Then you can also then lean on a confidentiality aspect. Like, this knowledge isn't to be released nor acted upon, nor are you to take this information and then use it in that particular regard, because again, it's essential to how my business runs. So maybe thinking about adding an element of confidentiality, saying, these particular practices are very important to the business. This is how the business runs. this is kind of like the businesses, if you want to call it bread and butter. And so any type of information you gain access to that falls in this category is deemed to be confidential. So that could also be something you can look at as well.
So what we are really saying here is that, one, nurture a very good relationship with your client.
Yep. I would say that is probably the because if you think about it, right, as a business, as a service provider, when you're offering good services to someone, they're not going to be looking around. They don't even want to entertain the next person. They're like, why would I? They take good care of me over here. I don't even want to even entertain the thought of someone. So yes, I would definitely say that's the first one.
I think something that we tend to lose sight of, and we are both businessmen, is that, you know, we think that there are those that just are focused on the price. But what I've come to realize is that excellent services and offers will always be taken over a certain amount of money. Like high ticket clients are looking at excellence. They're looking at the value you bring, not just how much you charge, because they can afford that, but they want to make sure that they can sleep better. So I realize that in the medical space, right? So the sink cleaning, our forte is the medical office cleaning, right? That's where we like, that is like our if you want to say niche, right? But I also realize that they stick with the same cleaning company for years.
Yep.
Because of that aspect of loyalty and value. And then when they go with you, at the moment they build that, you give them value, they give you that loyalty. And when they will tell you with a quickness, if your subcontractor, your cleaner was trying to get the contract, they will tell you. And actually I realized that it starts to make them feel uncomfortable with that cleaner. And they will tell you that I don't think I want this person in my space, simply because, especially in medical offices, if the cleaner or the subcontractor will do that, they could also violate certain HIPAA things, right? Or take a credit card and go shop at Amazon, you know. And people have done it, right? So I think it is important to first develop and nurture your relationship with your client, and also put into your contract non-solicitation agreement. Because I take no joy in telling somebody they can't start something that's making me successful. I want you to start a cleaning business. I just don't want you to come and interact and try to poach the client that we are both serving through me. Right.
Exactly. And I think also too, you really were hitting on a really good point too, right? Also think about it from the perspective of, so let's say, for example, you have a subcontractor who is trying to solicit that client, right? So they're doing something that some people would look at as like kind of underhanded or behind someone's back. So what does that say about the subcontractor? If you get an opportunity to screw the client over, are you going to do the same thing? Are you going to try to go ahead and get over on the client too, because you are only out for yourself? So to your point, yeah, a client is thinking to themselves, man, the cleaning company takes real good care of me. I know that may be the subcontractor, but the company, I've been working with the company for 5 years now, and they've been great. Why would I want to even go dabble with somebody else when I know I got good service here? Everything is on par. We don't have any issues. These are the kind of things, and I'll say to your audience too, like, for anybody watching this who's thinking about or has a cleaning company, even before you start talking about, you know, kind of legalese, think about good business practices, you know, being honest, being forthcoming with people. People appreciate that. Like, because just as much as there's that, there's also people trying to get over and people trying to scam, get ahead. So if you're offering honest and legitimate services, trust and believe people take notice to that, and you would be surprised how much favor it gains you.
Yeah. I think people don't realize the value of these things, right? Transparency, forthcoming, honesty. Let your yes be your yes, your nay be your nay. And that doesn't make you it doesn't make you less, it makes you respected. And respect is super key. We are coming to the end of this. When is it acceptable to break a contract?
Good question. So again, depends on the facts. Is the contract now? So let's say the contract was validly executed. Everything was, all the P's and Q's, everything was done. It's appropriate. It meets the elements we talked about before. But now in its enforcement, it becomes unconscionable to me, meaning it's so unfair to me to continue in this contract. I have to break the contract. I have to be able to break the contract because it's either it's putting me in a position that is I'm at such a disadvantage. It makes no sense for me to continue with it, or just so simply unfair in how it's being enforced that this is why I stopped doing this. This is why I stopped paying, things like that. So there's the first. Another one could be, well, did you enter the contract under duress, legality? Did somebody threaten a family member? Did somebody threaten you? They say, hey, man, we're going to break your kneecaps if you don't sign this contract. So now you're in a position where, or maybe the way that the facts of the situation pan out, it was almost like you had no choice but if you did, you wouldn't have. So you did now. So now you find yourself in a position like, man, not only was how I got into the agreement messed up, the terms of the agreement is even more messed up. I don't want this. I'm a breach contract. You go to court, you explain your case and simply say it was under duress. Here are the facts. This is the reason why I said, you know what, I'm got to break the contract. So it depends on your scenarios. It depends on the situation that you're dealt with. You know, is it a situation where you just like, you know what, I don't even like the contract anymore. I'm gonna just go ahead and stop doing it. What I would say in that regard, and this is why I tell again to your audience, for those of you looking at offering cleaning services, why having a service agreement is important, including language that talks about termination. Maybe you can freely terminate the agreement at any time. That way you don't have to breach it per se. You could just simply be like, man, you know what? In the beginning, it's looked great. But over time, I started to see there was just some things I didn't like. I don't really want to continue. I'm going to go ahead and just gracefully bow out. So we'll go ahead and give them notice and we'll be still in line with the agreement that we signed.
Give notice. All right. I would like to ask a lot of questions, but I've run out of them. So the last question I want to pose to you, I think we've learned a lot, is how can you help somebody like me? What are some services that the Hilton law firm, PLLC, can offer a cleaning company like me?
Another great question by you, bro. So the services my firm offers are pretty much what we kind of touched on earlier in our conversation, helping to form a business. So again, to your audience, to those of you who may be thinking about working with an attorney to start a business, that's a service my firm offers. Being able to walk you through the process of forming the business, drafting an operating agreement. Maybe you're going to do cleaning services for various businesses, various companies, or even maybe, I don't know if this is something you do, maybe even residential cleaning, like you may go into someone's home. I don't know if you do that, but if that's something that, okay. But if that's something that exists and you want to draft a contract, my firm can also help you with that too. Or maybe you're in a situation where you working with a, let's say an office building, let's say, and they say they want your services, but they have a contract that they want to offer you to sign for the services you're going to give. My firm can also review that contract and say, well, what are the terms you're looking for in this? Okay, let's see if there's a middle ground that we can get to, so that way it's fair for both parties. So those are just some of the services. And again, I'll provide you with my contact information that you can share with your audience. And should anyone have any questions or comments, they just want to get some insight. I do offer free consultation. So I just want to put that also out there as well. If you have questions, call, email. I'm more than willing to help out and then see how it is my firm could potentially help you.
Let's be clear. Let's make it very clear. You don't offer free consultation on more than one occasion to the same person, right? It's just one free consultation, right?
Yeah, correct. Because after a while, man, my time got I got to bill for my time. I got to bill.
Yeah. Because you know, there's the people that will always come for free consultation.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Attorney Hilton cannot. Like, wait, hold on. Like, if it's gonna be multiple, now we need to start talking about whether.
Yeah, you gotta pay that bread.
But I also do know there's some people who really they're trying to start up a business, and they only have so much funds. They have questions. I try to be, because I understand what it's like to be in that space too. So I try to
Yeah.
do my best to say, hey, you know what? If it's a situation where you have a certain budget, I'll work with you. But it depends on the scenario.
Keyword budget. You gotta get paid for your time. All right, so these are quick hitters. What is a book you recommend for somebody that's trying to get started that you think they should read?
That's a good question.
Or any book that you recommend at all.
Actually, 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
I think is a really good book that I would recommend to people. Just kind of what it's teaching, and it's been a while since I've read that book. I have one more. So the 48 Laws of Power. Let me hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get the other book. I'll show it to you on the screen. Can I do that? Am I allowed to do that? Can I show you the book?
You're the lawyer.
All right, 1 second. Hold on. So here is the other book. Let me put up in the camera right here. I'll pull it back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Budgetnista. I think she calls it the Budgetnista.
Yeah. I've seen that book in Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, it's a pretty good read so far. I would definitely recommend those as well. And then for anybody who is looking to start up their business too, I would also kind of go online and read about like what it is to start a business in your specific state. What are certain things you need to be mindful of, and kind of like the steps also that you need to be aware of as well. Now, again, could I sit down with you and go through those things with you? 1000%. But I also tell clients too, it's important that you know your business as well. Like you don't just want to rely on me. You want to have some level of knowledge, so that way you can understand how things work too.
And then the last question: who is your business hero or business hero?
Ooh, okay. Billy Carson is one.
Okay.
Because I've seen how he's kind of built up his business empire right now. Is it Myron Golden? Is
That's my guy.
I've seen a few of his videos. I know my wife is a very big fan, but just kind of even some of the things that I've heard of, and then also some of the things she's mentioned as well about kind of how he applies biblical principles to his business and how he's seen it grow abundantly. I think that's pretty intriguing too. I have to admit, I definitely do need to watch more of his videos, but from what I've heard and the bits that I've watched of him, he definitely seems to have some really good stuff.
He's in your neck of the woods, by the way. Yeah, I'm a big Myron Golden and Miles Monroe guy. So definitely, you should definitely check out his book, Boss Moves. I'm reading that right now.
Okay.
And also anybody that wants to, you talk about being good with money and knowing how to come up with different ways to make money, from the trash man to the cash man, also by Miles Myron Golden is good. Brother, it's been fun. It's been good. The next time we meet, we're not going to talk about business. We're going to stroll. Thank you for coming on here.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you. And as we say in our kingdom, the king and I salute the king and you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And this is it. See you.
All right, bro. Later.